Hello, everybody. The first thing I'd like to know is how many people, because we're going to talk about the movies. I just want to see how many people have seen Getaway, the one that Steffen made. Can we show? Okay, so we cannot do spoilers. That's the thing. And Ik, who has seen it? Okay. All right, go and see it quickly, people. I mean, then there's always a chance that you people know only one of them or something. So I thought maybe I'll introduce a little bit and show something. Steffen is a Dutch filmmaker. And of course, people in Holland know him, I guess, because he's made some huge films here. He took the Dutch film industry by storm together with his partner then, Flip, which was always a Steffen and Flip film. And that was the New Kids. The first New Kids film came as a huge surprise to a huge success. But people who had paid attention had already seen, of course, that the New Kids, in the beginning was called New Kids on the Block, wasn't it? Yes, the first two.
Correct.
Yeah. And it was absolutely wild and fantastic. And it was sort of based on your hometown, wasn't it? Maaskantje.
It's based on my youth in Maaskantje, and we shot it in the same village.
Yeah, I come from sort of the same area, so I had a special interest. And then he's made many films after, and all comedies, very good. And recently he started an international career. Just before I found out that you actually already had the idea for this one before the first one was made, right? You already were working on it. It's, it's funny because it feels such a idea for a second movie, and now there come zombies, right? It's funny. And Joseph, who was here with Ik, how many feature films have you made now? Four. And but of course he has had and still has a huge career in making music videos. The reason I was asked, I guess, well, they told me, is because I really like genre movies, and that's what I think that's what we're going to talk most about. It's interesting that what defines a genre, because it could be anything. You know, if you can clutch a group of films together about anything, then they call it a genre. And there are different kinds of genres, but they're also in a hierarchy, I guess. I always feel that the two boldest, well, maybe not it's where the men get separated from the boys. It's horror and it's comedy, just for the reason that it's so obvious whether they work or not, right? Because if you see a drama film with an audience, and you can feel the tension, of course, whether it works or not, but you can always have discussions afterwards whether it did or not, because it works for you or not. If you see a comedy with an audience and nobody's laughing, the fucking thing didn't work, right? Then there's no discussion. Same with horror. You know, you will know if it works or not. And you two did something. You combined those two. You combined horror and you combined comedy. Which has a long tradition, you know. It's something that has been done for ages and ages. But there have been really good ones, but there have been also some that fell totally flat, because it is, of course, a very contradictory thing, because laughing and being scared are not necessarily something that you in normal life happen too often that it is combined. So it is a strange thing. So I wondered if that's something that you guys really thought about when you were going into these movies.
I think the reason why I like comedy and horror that much is because it's so honest. I mean, you were explaining. Yeah, I mean, a movie works or it doesn't work, and it's just so awesome to figure out how to push that button. That's something I really enjoy, and I enjoy it as an audience, and I really enjoy it while making. So yeah, this is for me something really pure, I guess.
Yeah, but you could go for one. What I'm interested in is that if you think about it, and you don't think of all the fantastic films that have been made. I mean, there are, I don't know, like I guess it started with Abbott and Costello. Meet the Mummy and Frankenstein and all those movies. I mean, you had like Return of the Living Dead and Shaun of the Dead, all these movies that combined both. Yet, now I'm mentioning the ones that work, but we all know some that didn't, because very often they're either not really funny or they're not really scary.
You know,
Is it something that you thought about?
well, yes. I actually disagree that comedy is something that works, and you can tell when people like it or not. Because one of the biggest critiques I've had from distributors on my movie is that comedy doesn't travel internationally. It's actually a negative. They're like, if you make a comedy in America, your chances of distribution are lower in Europe.
Yeah, but that might be because the sensibility for the, or at least the story is, there's the sensibility for the type of
It's
humor.
because comedy is culture.
Yeah.
And
Makes sense.
Cultures are different. And the references you put into a movie may not be funny from different countries. In fact, I'd say a good chunk, one of my biggest fears of playing IC internationally is that it's so many American jokes, like American bands, American jokes, in-jokes, things like that.
It's funny to think about that. You think about it because we are, maybe Holland is worse than the rest. We are so indulged into American culture.
It's true, but
Still.
to a degree. Look, I'm married to a Dutch woman.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know this. She's from Utrecht, and she's constantly showing me Dutch humor, you know, and she's constantly showing me skits of old people doing Dutch things, and she thinks it's the most hilarious thing. And I think I would give it a 5 out of 10 when she gives it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand the cultural references.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I've got a foreign girlfriend.
And also, you know, I've given a lot of thought about exactly why do we laugh.
Yeah.
You know, think about it. Evolutionary, animals don't make sounds unless there's a reason. Because if an animal makes a sound,
Yes.
you're a target.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're an animal that makes sound in nature, predators can come kill you. So the fact that we make this extremely loud sound means something. And what I think it is that it's making a safe space.
Yes.
If an animal can actually start laughing, it's telling other animals this is a clear area.
Are there other animals that laugh, actually?
Monkeys and primates and mating calls and things like that, right? But for hominids and humans, when we laugh, we're clearly saying the space is safe.
Yeah.
And so therefore, you have a herd behavior, and it's like a place for people to come together and you know, if something attacks you, then there's at least 50 other of you, you know. But, you know, here's another example of comedy, Schindler's List. Is that a funny movie? No.
Really?
But there is a comedy scene in it, and the scene is, it's Nazis cutting the hair of a Jewish person. They're laughing. For them, that is amazing comedy. For the rest of us, we're repulsed.
Yeah, we see it as pain.
So comedy has different connotations, different meanings in different cultures.
It is very interesting, but then you thought, let's make it even more difficult and let's put horror with it, because that's what I was asking. Is that you're absolutely right. I think there must be a biological or a Darwinistic reason why we laugh, but in nature, as I said. It can, I guess if you think about it long enough, if there is something really scary, I think if it really turns fast, then you might be inclined to laugh after it. That might happen. But there are not a lot of situations where you go back and forth to that in natural life. So it is a very, artificial thing to do, yet it's proven to work, right? So what I would be scared of, I think, if I would do a horror comedy, is that if I have a huge laugh, then the next scene, it would be impossible to make them scared. Now, there are many ways to go about this, I think. I think a lot of, most, not all, but most horror comedies tend to aim more towards the comedy or more towards the horror, I think. And you have to, and it's all about balance. So that must mean that there is some sort of a balance that you're trying to figure out. Like, okay, for instance, okay, let me ask, did you really think I really wanted to be scary? Like, or did you always have in the back of the mind, no, it has to be a comfortable scary? What do you think?
With Getaway, I was never going to make like the how do you call it, the jump up being scared.
Jump scares.
Yeah, the jump scares. I mean, that was just not something that suspense was very important in that film. So it was mostly balancing out the comedy and the suspense and the eeriness, and that's what I went for. And I didn't even had that goal to have like jump scares, because those are different movies. And I think that is a very hard thing to combine with comedy, because it's so far away from each other. I think after a jump scare, you could have a great laugh. But then it has to be scary then you have to get back into it, to get scared again, and then to laugh again. So then it's more scary. In the end.
Did you think that the comedy would be conflicting with the scariness, or did you not think that it was? Were you making a comedy with horror elements, or a horror movie with comedy elements, or did you really think that you were somewhere in the middle?
So I'll be honest with you, I'm never scared at movies, ever.
All right.
Because it all comes off false to me. I see the filmmaking, you know?
Yeah.
So I see the manipulation, and it's very hard to scare me in a movie. I'm rarely ever scared. Jump scares definitely don't work for me, because I can sense the mathematics started happening, you know? But my movie particularly was made almost like for two audiences. So there's an older audience for people that watch it one way, and there's a younger audience that I made it for. And I made it two different movies in the same movie. Look, my feeling about horror is it's much scarier when you're younger. Like when you're 12 years old, everything scares you. You can't even watch E.T. because that's a scary movie, you know? And what ends up happening, I think, is that when people start discovering horror movies about 13, 14 years old, there's a rapid acceleration of what can scare you. It starts off with anything can scare you. And if you watch about 4, 5, 6 movies, you start becoming an expert in horror, you know, and it becomes less and less scary to the point, it's almost like porn, you know? It's like when someone first watches porn, you're like, wow, that's amazing. And if you get too addicted to porn, then you have to watch harder and harder stuff. And it gets weirder and weirder and weirder. Yeah. And I think that's what's happened in horror.
You're saying yes, but we assume that, yeah.
And so now I think today, if you look at the state of horror films, they're so gory and they're so over the top. It's like Terrifier. People are getting ripped in half, and you know, bodies are getting split apart. And that is basically the state of horror right now. It's not even scary to me. It's
no,
like,
but
nonsense.
I guess you're right. The thing is that most horror movies are nowadays are not scary. They're just like porn in the sense
gory.
They go gory. That's it.
They're gory, but even the jump scares that you see in these Conjuring movies and things like that. I mean, you've seen a million of them, and it's like one person looks this way, and then the jump scare doesn't happen. Then you turn this way, and then just when you're supposed to relax, they bring on the jump. It's like math, you know. It's like
but then every now and then, like I thought, Hereditary did get on my nerves.
Sure.
I mean, it definitely. I wouldn't put that in that category.
Well, I haven't seen the movie, so
but okay, trust me.
But I will say this. So for Ick, what I wanted to do was make a movie that was scary for 13-year-olds, because they deserve to have a genuine scare that's not gory, do you know? So I wanted to make a movie that was scary for them. But like Gremlins, when you watch, do you remember Gremlins, that movie from the 80s?
Yes.
When you're a 12-year-old, that movie is the scariest movie ever, but with heart. And then when you're an adult, it's not scary at all. It's the funniest movie you can watch, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
the strange thing about Gremlins is also that it starts off really like a family movie. So if you go into that as a 12-year-old, not knowing that it can become scary, then it's really strange, because it starts off as complete family film, and then suddenly there are these scary monsters, and
so
it's an interesting thing. Well, also, I think it was I know it was what's his name? The guy who did Scream, Wes Craven. He said, and that was interesting. He said horror is boot camp for the psyche.
Well, yeah, and also if you look at what the themes of a lot of these movies are, they're like little moral lessons about sex, you know? So that's why.
Yeah.
So kids become very fascinated by two things: sex and death. They want to survive, and then they want to reproduce, you know? Yeah. So a lot of these movies, it's like they mix the two together. It's like someone starts having sex and then they die. It's like these little weird, like German, like fairy tale messages.
Yeah. It's funny that, you know, this all started again. A lot of that started with movies like Halloween, and Carpenter, I guess, never really liked that that explanation of it, because he felt that, but it is absolutely true. That's especially the movies in those days, in the 80s and so. And then, of course, later they started to spins on that. Because genres is interesting. Every genre, even horror, has a lot of subgenres, right? There are many, and I guess you have done something which is in the alien invasion genre, which comes from the, I guess it's the Invasion of the Body Snatchers and all those movies. And you did, how would you call it? Like the movies that are, like people going from the city to a rural town, and then all the people, like the scene in American Werewolf in London, when they come into the cafe and the music stops and they're all looking. And as you're doing that stuff, you can see that that you've seen those movies. And same with you. Is it something that you embrace, or that you sometimes have to hold yourself back in with that sense? Could you elaborate on that?
The funny thing is that I never saw that movie.
You never saw American Werewolf in London?
No,
You never saw The Wicker Man?
Yeah, I saw it just before shooting this film.
Yeah.
And that was because of Nick Frost, who wrote the script. He was also inspired by The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
That he is, but I missed it. In a way, I'm terrible at memorizing films. So there's lots of films that I saw, and then there's this feeling about this film, like, oh wow, that felt like this, and then but I'm very bad at really quoting films, but maybe it's in my subconscious. So I think, I mean.
No, but I didn't necessarily mean literally. But I don't believe you. In the sense, because I've seen your other work as well, and you can see that you are playing with the form as well. If you look at the one before, Krazy House, it is you're even playing with the formats and all that stuff. So you know about movies, and you can see that, right? And television, and
but the funny thing is that there are lots of references for me, because it's different when I write a film. Getaway is the first movie that I directed that I didn't write myself. It was a script by Nick Frost, and it was just, I loved it right away when I read it, and there's a big turn in the film, I didn't see it coming. So I thought, like, wow, this is what I want to create for the audience, and I love to sort of I saw all these things in there. But the films that inspired me, I mean, The Shining is a big inspiration. It's always a big inspiration. It's one of the best films ever made, I think. But I mean, we watched lots of Tchaikovsky, for instance, and
that I did not see. Yeah.
So then we did it just right, I think. But we were really into the more that kind of. I mean, it was more the suspense that because what I did before was lots of comedy and lots of more. How do you say when it's. More comedy and sort of hard stuff in a way. I don't know, not so subtle.
As I'm thinking, as I saw it, I remember this was also, of course, has a social component in the sense that this becomes big on social media, and therefore that's what kicks off the story, right? I noticed the thing in your movie that it was very much part of now also, and that you put a lot of. You were satirizing not so much, not only the genre or the filmmaking, but real life. There are quite a lot of jokes which make fun of woke people in it, aren't there? In Ik.
But it also makes fun of the right as well.
Oh, I didn't want to put you in that thing, but the thing is that the jokes on the right, I think I've seen more than the jokes on the wokeism.
Here's the reasoning there are so many woke jokes in Ik.
Yeah.
I'm purposely making a movie about a man out of time. You know, if you haven't seen the movie, but it's about a millennial man who starts off sort of, ruling his high school, and he's listening to all this 2000s music, and he's the most popular man in school. And the origin of the story is that I was I was thinking about all those pop punk videos back in the 2000s, Sum 41, Blink-182, the most popular music genre of the time.
Yeah.
20 years later, no one listens to it. It's not on the radio. It's not played anymore. What
Is it
happened?
not? Jesus Christ.
What happened to that guy that was listening to all that music?
Yeah.
You know? What happened to that music? What happened? What is the state of that guy's life? So I made a story about that guy, and 25 years later, he's still listening to the same music. But what does the world look like from his perspective? One of the differences between my music videos and everybody else is that I tend to try to make them, a lot of music videos, you try to look outside in. You look at the artist and you examine them. I try to always go inside out and make you understand what the artist is seeing through the videos. You try to literally get inside the artist, you know? So for me,
Does that mean that you have to have a personal bond with them to?
no, you just have to.
Your idea of it.
You try to empathize with what they're thinking and what they're doing. So for me, when I made Ick, really the movie is told through his eyes, you know? So if you take a millennial person and then you suddenly see Gen Z, it's an exaggeration of what a millennial might think Gen Z looks like.
Yeah.
You know, it's an exaggeration of the wokeness to make the point that he is, you know, obviously comedies are exaggerations.
Yes.
That he does not fit in with this new world, that this seems so alien to him and so woke and so leftist and, you know, communist, whatever it is that he thinks, it's his perspective. That's the joke, you know? It's like, it's not the fact that I hate Gen Z. I love Gen Z. You know, so.
But because you obviously, as you said, they said things like, but comedy doesn't travel and everything. But did anybody then say to you, yeah, but if you're going to make fun of Gen Z, then they won't come? Did anybody ever say that?
I learned that actually by these film screenings. I can literally watch the movie and then I can watch the walkout start as soon as the first woke joke happens.
Really?
Yeah, and what I've actually, the weirdest thing that has happened, I keep screening this at film screenings, at film festivals, where the audience age is like 50, you know? And it's really made for like 16-year-old girls, right? And there's a humongous, and we keep saying Gen Z, but there's a humongous difference between a 15-year-old girl and a 25-year-old girl. A 15-year-old girl is still with her parents. A lot of 50-year-olds have not had sex yet. They don't know. They may not even had a boyfriend, girlfriend yet, you know? By the time you're 25 years old, you're in college, you think you're an adult, and you're protective of who you are, you know? So
Conservatism already kicks in at 25.
No, actually, it's the reverse. It's like you're identifying yourself. You're fighting against other 35-year-olds and 40-year-olds that are above you. So you don't have a sense of humor about yourself right now because you're too much in the fight, you know? Once you're back in your 40s, then you have a sense of humor about yourself. And when you're 15, 16, you don't really have that fight yet. You're just fighting against your parents, you know? So
who are the ones walking out then?
The 20-year-olds, the 25-year-olds, because they think they're being made fun of, you know? And so it's the weirdest thing. I have like these teenagers that I actually screened it. We screened it in Iowa. It was the best screening we've ever had. The audience went nuts, right? Yeah. And then a lot of 40-year-olds love it because they love the music and they identify with it. It's the middle age that I thought I was making for that hates it.
Well, I mean, movies are the success of movies are defined by the people who like it. Luckily, not by the people who don't like it. So that's. But you were talking about music. That's something that, although also very different, plays a large part in both movies. I thought it was funny that oh, God damn it! Oh, I should have known. What's the name of the girl who plays the?
Mina Suvari?
Yeah, she's in the music video of the song that you used, right? That's that's funny. I thought, but that was deliberate.
I did not know, actually.
No, come on.
My only agenda with casting Mina Suvari is that I wanted the dream girl of the 2000s.
Yeah,
like, you know, and there's one girl that's the dream girl. It's the girl in American Beauty. She's on a poster.
And in that song, which she's also the dream.
And they made a movie about like she being the fantasy dream girl of the 2000s. So I was just lucky when she said yes, you know. But I didn't know she was in that music video.
Did you know in advance which songs you wanted to keep, and could you get them all? Was that?
I had ideas of songs, but I got most of them. But I'd say about 20% I did not get.
Yeah.
And I think one song in particular would have made the movie even better, but I couldn't get it. Do
you want to share which it was?
Huh?
You want to say which one it was?
Well, you know, the funny thing is when you think about all these sad songs, you know, it's really weird when you try to listen to sad songs. There are sad songs out there, but they're not cinematic. And you play them, and you feel like you want to dance to these sad songs. There's one sad song. Do you know live lightning crashes? No, not in Europe.
Yeah.
But when you play it, it's sad but beautiful and melodic, and it builds and all that. And
You can use it,
but they turned me down because they did not want to be
motherfuckers,
represented.
yeah. And with you, I had the feeling that some of these songs probably were already in the script. Were they, or were they?
No.
I'm now talking. Sorry. Yeah. The Iron Maiden one.
No, I put every song. I mean, no, these are all choices that I made in pre-production because I always want to know what we can use, and also, I mean, when you make when you have a fighting scene on a certain track, it's almost like a music video in a way. You want to shoot it in a certain way.
But then you have to know that you have the rights and everything.
Yeah, exactly. There was one song that I didn't know that we could get, which is I think the best song in the film, and that's the Iron Maiden, the Iron Maiden track, and that was.
That fitted so well that I thought it must have been in the idea.
Yeah, it's perfect. But this came from Michel, the music supervisor. I was experimenting with all these kinds of different songs and score, and it was a budget thing because the budget was. I mean, it was pretty low budget. This film, it was like a Dutch budget, but then with non-Dutch actors, which makes it even less.
Yes, which makes your budget even lower.
Yeah, exactly. So for the music, there was like this small budget, and I had this list like of songs that I wanted, and in the end, it was just making choices. But these were all like very unknown songs because there was no. I mean, the whole budget you could buy like half of a hit. I mean, it's insane how much it cost. And one of the songs that was very important for me was the Monsieur Cannibal.
Yes, of course I was going there. Because in Holland everybody knows that from the fucking Efteling.
Yes, from the Efteling. Yes.
So I wondered because in my imagination there must have been some sort of Swedish version of it. Nobody knows it.
I didn't
found out about it by accident or something.
No, I edited it on the French version, and it's a song about cannibalism, but it was in this.
It's in a Dutch
park.
Yeah.
And they pulled it out because it was. I mean the whole thing is gone now. I guess.
No, I think they changed it a bit.
Oh.
It definitely doesn't have a big guy with a black guy with the lips anymore.
No, okay, that's. Great. It was perfect that they took that out. But for this film, this was perfect because it has such a happy feel. And then there was this. I mean, there was also the music supervisor who found out that there was also a Swedish version of this song.
God damn it, that's perfect.
Yeah, so I was really happy. But those songs they didn't.
But then you go to the guys and nobody knows that goddamn song. And they think, well, who wants fucking Monsieur Cannibal in Swedish? They must have thought, what the hell?
Yeah, but then you still have I've got the rights of the original version, of course.
Yes,
so
you have to go back to those.
So it's not like it's more doable then. There's only more people involved in a way, so it gets sometimes even can get harder. But music is for me always super important in the film, and something that I want to know beforehand as much as possible, of course. And then in the end, sometimes you get a present, and this
and then you get a no, and then you start, and then you have to do a sound alike or a thing or another song. It's horrible, man. It's really I've been there.
Yeah. In the end, you can. I mean, the best thing is to go back to score because you can never
duplicate. No.
Have the same. Yeah, exactly. If you got a perfect song, then you just need that song or nothing.
But the concept of free video, we have to talk about this because you can say I'll do it for free, but this does not look like
in Holland we do free videos because there's like this music industry, and then the budget is a normal budget is like €5,000.
Yes.
This is not a free video for you.
No, I mean you did it for free, I guess. But does this mean that you had to go to all the people that you normally work with and say, please, would you do this one for free?
Yeah,
as well?
I mean
that's how you do it then, or?
Yeah, it's still free. It's still free. I mean, it's not free, but like they're not paying for the DP. They're not paying for me. They're not paying for the colorist. Not paying for the visual effects. They're not paying for any of the crew. Yeah. I mean, the things that cost, like puppets, they have to pay for.
Yeah.
But I don't like doing things for free because it's exploitive for my crew.
Yeah, that's what I feel bad about. If you say I'll do it for free, but you're not going to talk to other people.
Because when we talk about free, and a lot of producers think free means lumber, and sets, but human labor costs. You know, that's an actual cost. Like someone taking 12 hours of the day away from their kids, that's human capital, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a free video because it's a lot of people working for free.
Yeah,
and I
that's
don't
what
take that lightly, you know?
Yeah. So it's not something you do very often, I guess.
No, I do not.
No, I mean, makes sense. I mean, I wanted to show also part of Krazy House, because that's, I don't know if you saw it, one of the fucking weirdest movies you've ever seen. It starts off as a 90s sitcom and then becomes a movie, I guess, movie. And we're going to see a part of that. And I wanted to show it because I realized that you said you were talking about the sense of humor, and that is pretty hard, and you know that there's a roughness to it.
Yeah, I always thought I was not really like a horror guy, but when picking out these moments, it gets. I mean, there's zombies with new kids, and also these exploding heads. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Something went wrong in Maaskantje, I guess.
Yeah.
I was thinking that Maaskantje, you know, the whole Brabant where I'm from, maybe because you're from Texas, right? I think so. Maybe that's the Texas of Holland. I think Brabant. Maybe that's the.
Wow, this is in a way.
In a way,
I don't know. It's in the south.
It's definitely the south. Yeah.
So that's it's not so warm.
No, but I always bragged when I went to Amsterdam that it was warmer in the south.
It is, yeah.
It is actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like this much, but it's still.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing that, of course, this and also the other movie that you did is that you worked with American and British actors, and then also a bunch of Dutch ones and a Belgian one, I think. And now in the new one, you did sort of the same thing, but then with Scandinavian actors or Swedish even. Is that something that you thought was difficult, or was it something that you felt that did you have to direct the ones other than the other ones?
It's just so. I mean, what is so great with working with actors that you know and that have like this big career is that there's so much. I mean, we live in a small country here in Holland, and we got some great actors, but I mean, what all these people, the experience they have, it's just so much. I mean, you can also say nothing as a director and just sit in your chair and I mean, you talk a lot about script beforehand, and I also like to do rehearsals, but not too much. I don't want to rehearse it and kill it.
Same
still have that energy, but there's, I don't know, the way how actors like that understand the script, how they exactly know where they are, their own thoughts about the character and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's humbling. I don't know. It's just so. It's in a way you could say it's easier the work, because in Holland I think you have to work harder as a director to get exactly that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's the culture or maybe it's the experience or.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But I was wondering if you because now you have done also Swedish actors or Scandinavian, were they all Swedish? Or?
They're all Finns. It's weird because this movie plays in Sweden, but we had to shoot it in Finland.
So they're all Finnish.
Yeah, so we have a full Finnish cast, and luckily, of course, and that wasn't always the case, but they are speaking English, which is not really realistic, of course, because also when they have the scenes when they talk to each other, but that made it possible to work with the Finnish cast and to sort of and they were great. It was so nice to work with these actors that you don't know from their work. I mean,
they're known in Finland maybe, but you have no idea. That's
exactly, and that's just so refreshing, because in Holland you know all these actors from all their work and their great things, but also all their shitty things.
Exactly.
And there's lots of shitty things have been made in
and
this
we know about those too.
Country. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes I mean, you have to sort of forget that, which is always. I also like that. It's also nice to have someone in there that you know from this soap opera, but really put it in a really different perspective, or give it. I mean, you can also use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is great. But that was really nice in Finland, working with these actors. I mean, the biggest part for me is of course communication, and I mean English is my second language, so that's. Sometimes it's a small I mean you know how I talk now. It's hard to find words sometimes.
Yeah, if you're in England or America for a while, then at some point you start thinking more like it. And if you switch,
yeah,
then
exactly.
You have to constantly, yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, with Krazy House, we shot that in Amsterdam, so we brought in the whole cast, and we had like a partly Dutch-speaking cast and a partly
and then all the crew was speaking English, and it's or mostly Dutch.
Or Dutch. So you begin. The first day of shooting, you try to do everything in English, but then of course there's time problems, and then you just go for Dutch because it's more quick, and then but it's so when you switch all the time, it's it's not the best way. So the fun thing in Finland was that nobody spoke my language, only the DOP. I brought my own DOP from Holland.
Jeroen, I think.
Joris Kerbels.
Joris, sorry.
Who is just great. It was so nice to be there with him and work on this movie as a team. And also, I mean, we had some. That's another story. First, finish this one. So you speak mostly English, and then it gets easier. So I don't know if that answers the question.
But it's interesting. But it gave me a new question, which is interesting, I think, which is about being a writer and being a director. Because did you write all the screenplays of all the movies that you did, or?
Yes, co-write.
Co-write, okay. But you've never done a movie that you actually got the script, or did you then got the script and then rewrite it? Did that happen?
My first movie I did for Warner Brothers, and that was a script that was written for me. But writing in Hollywood is a very funny idea, because we would shoot the movie and then the studio executives would rewrite it.
Yeah.
And so I would just this is back 20 years ago, so they would give me fax pages every morning.
And you have to do that then?
And I have to do exactly what's on the page.
It's basically how we shoot commercials, I think.
Yeah, and literally, they have a script supervisor, and normally you think a script supervisor is for continuity, you know?
Yeah.
That's not what they're there for. They're
really a script supervisor. I always thought the name was strange, but that's...
They're there to make sure that the actors say the words exactly as it was written on the page. And after they do that, then you can do your take. But the reason
that one is in the movie then, because...
The reasoning is that they paid some writer that I've never met $250,000 a week to write these words, and they want to see those words on screen because they paid for it.
Jesus Christ,
wow.
Yeah.
It also feels a little bit like a prison in a way. I mean, it's great that you can do your own take, of course, and there's...
Yeah, but it's not set. I mean, the thing is that, of course, in America, especially if it's a studio film, then you've got, what is it again, the 10 weeks or something to edit, and then they can throw you off, and then they can do whatever the fuck they want with the...
Yeah, which is, I don't know if you've seen this Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni thing. The strangest thing about this is that I don't know why the Directors Guild of America is not getting involved, because the director has a right not to show the thing to anybody for at least a month after it's done. And meanwhile, they're demanding to look at cuts before. I don't understand how that's possible. Like,
I don't understand, because I mean, one of the people I worked with was Tom Holkenborg, Junkie XL, and he does all these like Batman and all that sort of stuff, and also other movies like in that area, you know, like huge movies. And then you know, he calls me and he says, "Oh fuck, they're doing it again." You know, and it means that then there's a movie, and they said it's really good, but they've showed it somewhere and this, and then now they're changing the whole beginning, they changed the whole end. The director is thrown off, but because he had his, I don't know, I think it was 10 weeks or something of thing, he is still the guy who was walking on the red carpet, and he can't say anything about that he doesn't agree with the cut that is on there, because you know,
not if you want to work again.
Yeah,
and also it's a disadvantage too, because when they say you have 4 weeks to do your director's cut, and then they screen it. Well, here's the reality. The studio is going to do their cut, But your cut is 4 weeks in, so you have
never-
no visual effects. You have really crappy sound.
There's no good cut in 4 weeks.
You get the worst version of it, that's your version, and then you play it. Of course, it will
Is it
score
4
whatever
weeks
it does.
now? It's and
Yeah, basically. And then the studio then gets to take their time on their version, and they put in their visual effects and their sound. And of course, they're going to score better because
I always say that I hate this because we've got these producers also, that come at some point and they're way too early. They see a cut and then they say what's not good with it, and then they feel like they really contributed. I said, fucking anybody could see what's not good with it if you show it that early. It's really stupid. Never mind.
That's why I love, making a small film.
Yeah, and let you alone a bit.
Yeah, and if you do it yourself, when you start writing it or setting it up, it's in Holland there's no other way. So that's
Yeah. But there was one thing I realized, and that was I didn't think about that because this was your first movie that you did not write, and you said that you liked the experience of really liking a script and shooting it, but not having written it. But there is another element which is big, and that is, of course, that it's not only a script by somebody else; it's the script of the main actor in the movie, also probably the actor, why the money is there and everything. So there is a
who is also the co-producer.
Exactly. So there is a thing there. How did that work for you?
I think we were very lucky that we could shoot Krazy House before A Getaway. So I shot these movies sort of back to back. It was not my dream scenario to do this so quick after, but it was the way it went. But it was great to already have made a film with Nick, and that it was like our own film, so that he was into our world, and that we could then work on his baby, because he wrote the script. The script was.
But there was also an amount of trust there because he had already worked with you.
Yeah, and it was also, you have lots of discussions, of course, and in the end, the budget was it was pretty low budget, so there was also things that we just needed to get some things done. We're like, right, this is a great scene, but it's just impossible to get this. We have only 2 days for this, so how are we going to do this? So we need to
figure out something.
Yeah. So we need to talk about things in script. It's not like we could shoot everything and then in the edit I could sort of try to make no, this was all, there was no luxury, we had no like extra days, or it was just, we everything we shot is in the movie. That was it was interesting. It was interesting, but it was lots of fun. It's just so, for me it was the first time because this is my 6th movie. And all the movies before this one I wrote or co-wrote together with Flip, and we co-directed and also co-produced, which meant, because our first movie was a big hit in Holland, that we could do whatever we wanted, and we listened to notes, and notes are great. I love notes, and then I just pick out the right ones in the end and use those. That's how it sort of works. And here in Holland it's different because it's not such a big industry. There's not so many money involved, so it's a really nice way of making your films. But this was the first script that I didn't write myself. What I loved about that was that it was so fresh, that you could sort of have your own vision of it. You're still sort of excited and not like for years working on a script and getting the funding, and because the whole film fund thing, it takes years. Look at you. We're waiting for your next movie.
Exactly.
It takes too long.
It takes too long.
Yeah.
But it's the interesting thing of doing something that somebody else wrote is also that in a way you have you call it freshness, but it's also sort of I don't know, you have a certain blindness, I think, because you know how it should be when you wrote it. And I think when you haven't written it, you have to work a little bit harder, and you have to figure out how to shoot it. And sometimes that's interesting, and you can also pinpoint maybe also something that, are we sure this is right? And so there's a certain amount of criticism that's good as well, I think.
And those were the small, hard things sometimes.
When you have to go to,
then you're on set. And then there's this certain type of ferry we could get. It was, there was only there was like not too many options. There was something in my head, but then you just work with the things and you get one and you think, all right, this is different, but it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then you get on set and Nick sees it and he's like, is this the fucking fairy?
That's not what I wrote.
That's not what I wrote. And it's totally, and it's logical because, yeah, of course that isn't what he wrote. And I know exactly on what fairy he was. I mean, that is a totally different thing. Yeah. But this was the fairy for this scene within these circumstances and everything. Yeah. And I think this fairy is even better than the fairy that, I mean, this film was pretty hard to make. The logical thing would be like, let's just find the perfect island, go there with the whole cast and crew and shoot there. We had to shoot in this area in Finland where there was no coastal line. So
that makes it hard, yeah.
Yeah, so there were some lakes and we had to sort of create
the angles that it made it look like.
Yeah, the whole island with just some corners and things. So it became really different than the logical thing you would think. And also what Nick had in his mind for a long time, because he wrote the script, he was on this certain island where he sort of inspired this thing. But it was great. In the end, I'm just super happy that I had to think really out of the box because of it was almost impossible to get this done. Sometimes it's great that there's not enough budget or resources.
If you really, of course, there's a limit to how far you can go.
Exactly, and we pushed it.
But sometimes, if you really have an idea for a scene and you can think of something else, then you have to really go to what you want to say, and then you can figure out something which might be better even.
You have to rethink everything. You're like, right, what do I really want to do with the scene?
Exactly,
and sometimes it comes, you have a far simpler but far better idea than the first thing that would sort of come up. That's.
It's also, I think, what my mindset is like Johan Cruyff, like every nadeel heeft voor, every what is it? Disadvantage has an advantage. That I feel that if something happens and I can't do what I want, and I have to do something else, then I say I'll just think of just one thing has to be better than the other, because I don't want to look back at the movie and go, shit, I want to have some sort of thing that is better. And if I can't get in the scene, I'll fucking rewrite the scene next to it, because then something good has to come out of it. I feel that otherwise you go nuts if you... There's one thing that I also thought was really interesting, because I saw the movie, and now if I see the music video, you used a lot of visual effects. And I always wonder, are you the type of director that knows everything about these things, or are you very technical in that sort of stuff, or is it something that you have just a wild imagination and somebody else has to solve it?
So I started filmmaking in high school. I'm old, and I started really in the '80s, but I became a professional director in 1990. By 1993. I had no other job but directing, and I've been making my living completely on directing since 1993. In 1990, there were no real computers in filmmaking. People were still editing on film. The entire idea of an Avid system and cutting on a computer.
You were extremely young. I'm just thinking that you started.
Very young. I graduated early from high school and then started
straight away.
So, like when I first started filmmaking, I didn't break it down from editing to directing to producing to art directing. To me, it was all one thing.
Yeah. Like a lot of them are now, actually.
Yeah. And when I went to film school, they tried to break it apart into different things, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I went there for a year and a half and then dropped out. But as technology improved, as computers came into it, like I got to see it, witness it, and see how the movies were changing.
Yeah.
And every time a new piece of technology came out, I would read up on it and figure out how it worked. So it was a film school that was built over 35 years.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I'm pretty well versed in almost any technology that comes out, and every time something new happens, whether it's AI or whatever, I'll read up on it, I'll figure out how it works, and then I incorporate it. But it's been a gradual process where every time something happens, I just add it into my arsenal, Yeah. So that's the way it works.
Just before the movie came out, you tweeted something about the visual effects, which I thought was so brave. You said something that because of the budget, what was it again? Something like, or was somebody pretending, you look like me now, I didn't do anything, so maybe somebody else did. But what I read, was that you said with this budget, I don't think the visual effects will be perfect or something, but that shouldn't but it shouldn't stop creative, something like that. I'm paraphrasing.
So,
like creative people to make the movies that they want to make, something like that.
the budget of this movie is extremely low, believe it or not. It's very, very low. It's much lower than you could possibly think.
Okay.
Although I shot for a lot of days, and part of the things that I've really realized as a filmmaker, like I purposely went into commercials for a reason. Because it's a lot of money, frankly, you know?
Yeah.
It's a way of sustaining and shooting constantly. And what that does is, it's not just the fact that you make a lot of money, you make other people a lot of money.
Yeah.
And specifically the people you make a lot of money for are crew, you know? So all of a sudden you're doing these multi-million-dollar commercials, and in the town, every DP, every gaffer, every producer, every vendor wants to work with you to get that money, you know? Yeah. And so that's why I make a movie once every 7 years, because I make a lot of people a lot of money. And then when I say, okay, my turn, I want to make something that I want to make, donate, you know?
Yeah.
And if you don't donate, you don't get my next 7 years worth of work.
All right, all right, yeah. Don't they call that now something? I don't know, like...
So there was a lot of donations.
Yeah.
But it's like putting a gun to their head.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, to be fair, they want to. I mean, we make mutual friends over 7 years. But let's not get anything wrong. You don't give me what
also,
I need.
I think you did something very smart, and that is a lot of these really effect shots with all that twirling shitty, you know, all that stuff, Dick. You don't linger on those shots. They're very often they're short. So
can I tell you one of the things I'll tell you now that a lot of people don't know about this film? There's a lot of clever filmmaking in it, and it's not just the ick. The ick is the thing that you see. Yeah. What you don't see is all the clever production techniques I've used that are completely invisible.
Yeah.
Like there's scenes that are completely CGI, like 10-minute scenes of people in the thing, and the entire environment is CG. You know, like when I wrote this movie, it's written like a $150 million movie.
Yeah.
You know, they're racing up towers and flipping cars, and you know, they're upside down in cars. And you know what? Like when you have a scene that's upside down in a car, that's very difficult. Yeah. Like you have to flip a car upside down. You have to put actors in it, and you have to make sure they don't die, because you can flip a car upside down. But what happens if the car collapses? Are you going to take that risk? You know, you bring in cranes, you rig it up and stuff like that. And you know what the only solution that I knew I could do, and this is after I wrote it, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to make a CG car, you know? Yeah. So the entire scene is now a CG car. And then when you look outside the window, that's a CG grass, that's CG environment. Nothing is real in that scene. People only focus on the ick because it's clearly CG, but they don't realize that 10-minute sequence is completely CG. When they're climbing up that tower, you know, I was like, well, shit, maybe I could hang them on wires and do all that. And they're like, but then I'm like, no, fuck, I have to build this scaffolding, but I don't have the money to build a real scaffolding. So I have to build one 10-foot thing that's about as wide as you are here, maybe as tall as a human being, and shoot that over and over for that 5-minute sequence, and then CG everything. The sky, the ground, the actual thing they put their hands on is CG. There's nothing real about that scene except actors acting. Yeah. And there's a lot of things, like something as simple as they walk into a room and outside is night, you know? And when you look outside and there's a building across the street.
But this is interesting, because then you must know, and then you must know enough about technique and filming and costs and everything, that you know that it's cheaper to do a CGI than to shoot a thing actually at night. And, you know,
I do. So this is one of the things that I think about. Like right now, we're in a world where professional directors don't really mean as much, because you can get anyone to do things cheap. Yeah. What they don't realize is, because the inexperience of a lot of these directors, they don't know the solutions, and they don't know exactly what they can push and what they can pull and what they can actually accomplish and actually pull off. Yeah. You're going to waste a lot of money making mistakes. And mistakes is why a Marvel movie costs $300 million instead of $50 million, because they make, how Marvel does it is they hire an inexperienced director, they push him around, or her, and they shoot the entire movie, they screen it, they go, fuck, we fucked up, let's redo it, and they shoot it again, and they do the CG.
Or they put it in a drawer, that happens too. Yeah.
They do it over and over until it's like a $300 million movie. The reason it costs so much is because every shot is done once, and it's done efficiently, and it's done at the maximum level that you can get out of that dollar. And that's what a professional director brings to the table. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people in the business understand what filmmaking actually is.
I also think that a lot of people don't like you for doing that because you're showing that you can do it for less. I think that's, I mean, I remember once, because it's some parts of the movie industry, as you make it sound like what we have more in the commercial industry, like doing advertising. And I remember that one of the first times that I was on a set, I think I was, and I was looking at everything, and then I said, but this could all be done, it could be all done much cheaper. And then some guy who worked for 20 years in the commercial industry said, don't say that. Nobody wants it cheaper because everybody is making money of how much money this costs.
Yeah,
I thought it was so fucking cynical.
Yeah, well, it's people spend money on everything but the human. They think that you can buy lumber, you can buy equipment, you can buy more clothes, you can do all that, and that's where the money will show up on screen. No, the idea is more expensive than anything you can possibly buy, and the idea comes from a human being.
Yeah.
So spend your money on a good human, and you're going to get something that looks expensive. Spend the money on a bunch of shit, it's going to just be shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Word up.
Very good, very good. I think this is a perfect statement to round it up and go to Q&A. Is there anybody who wants to, how do we do this? Is there something that we throw around, or do we just yell out and I try to say? We have a mic, good. Okay, it's coming, run.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Joseph and Steffen and Martin. Fascinating. You guys are masters of your trade, and you've worked super hard to get there. Earlier, you mentioned humor, and humor is culture, and that's very clear. Could you both talk a little bit about the human condition that transcends culture, which is why films cross culture and appeal broader, have a broader appeal?
Starship Troopers I get, but Basic Instinct as well?
Oh yeah, the sex is so ridiculous. It's so over the top, you know? It's like he's like there's a shot of like them and then she's grinding him but look, in American movies you didn't suddenly see a bunch of people spreading their legs and eating each other out and all that. And he pushed the limits on that stuff, you know? And it was very, very controversial in America, but I always saw it. And by the way, he confirmed it. I had breakfast with him, so I talked to him about this stuff, you know? And I love that post-irony where you can't tell if it's funny or not. You can't tell if it's absurd or not. Because I actually think life works that way. Like, for instance, sometimes there might be a really sad moment in someone's life, right? And someone is dying, right? And as you have that particular moment, in a movie, you're like, this moment should be sad. That's why we have genres. They define how we perceive certain emotional events, and we have expectations that must be rewarded at the end of a genre unless it's not a genre, right? Mm-hmm. So like in a genre film, that moment is sad, it stays sad, and you complete that idea. But sometimes in life, when you have that sad moment, something funny happens. The person is dying and that person farts, you know? And you're like, this person is dying, and now I'm laughing at that particular moment, but that's real. Or that person doesn't have to do anything. There's just something about the way that person looked is kind of funny to you, but you love that person, but now you think the moment is a little funny and you feel guilty about it. That dichotomy of human existence, that feeling of two contradictory ideas, I think that's the fun part of filmmaking. I think that's what I'd like to explore. I think the natural state of just giving you a scene exactly the way it should be, fine, and there's a good place for that, but I like the post-irony of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking about what you said about the international side of it. I agree that a lot of his cult. First of all, I think the fear of death, why that might be universal. I think there's something under it, and that is fear of the unknown. I think that's the ultimate fear. And if a society thinks it knows what's after death, then of course you take that away, and then the fear of the unknown is something else. The thing I think we're attracted to stories, and I think that the medium that tells the story changes through the ages. And for instance, now I'm not a gamer, but my son is, for instance, and he gets a lot of his stories through games, right? That's and I think the gaming industry is much bigger than the movie industry at the moment. And we had a time where plays or and I think literature. What I think is that why we are drawn to it is a lot of American people talking about movies think it is about the message of the narrative. I don't think that is the thing. I think the emotions we get out of it is very much like what I just said about horror, about Wes Craven. I think we did it already, storytelling, we did it already when we were in caves, right? And it somehow, I think we learn to, it's a surrogate experience. So you can experience all sorts of things through stories without actually having if somebody dies, you go out and then but you have experienced it. And somehow it makes you cope better with life. So I think the depth of movies are in the emotional experiences, not in the narrative message of a movie. That's what I think.
Can I tell you something else? I've noticed you said something about death is universal and the fear of it is universal. I actually think there's a phenomenon going on right now, especially with young people, where death is not the issue. And if you notice it, it reflects in our movies. Like one of the biggest genres out there right now that you see in all these A24 horror films are it's that movie where everybody gets together at a party, right? And then they all start dying. But what is the real fear of those movies? That they die? No, it's being exposed, It's that someone said something that misrepresented themselves or pretends to be something they're not. And then through the course of the movie, the biggest fear is they do not want to reveal that lie, that they're not who they say they are. And you know what that reminds me of? Social media, okay?
Yeah, as you were starting it was of that. I know where that's going, yeah.
So the biggest fear of young people today is not death, it's being exposed. In fact, they would prefer death to being exposed.
Yeah.
So culture changes things.
Yeah. That is interesting. You had can the microphone go here?
My question for Joseph Kahn, and as a millennial, really thank you for all the music videos, because after school, I was watching all the time MTV, all the time. But now everything is digital, and we don't watch TV a lot. And our music videos are that, or this is just a feeling for the millennial? And my second question, what kind of music do you like? Thanks.
I think that the issue with the death of music video right now has less to do with the format, which obviously the format has gotten shorter. Although if you have the patience for it and you're interested in it, you'll watch the format longer. I think the issue is that people already know the answers to what they're watching, okay? And the answers that we all take for granted is that males suck or females suck. It's like we don't really make love songs as much. Like when I started in the 80s, you talk about the music that I love. I loved 80s music. And in the 80s, like the vast majority of that stuff was, that woman is so beautiful, what can I do to have her? What can I do to have you? And the woman goes, I'm so beautiful, if you have me, I will reward you with amazing life, like this sort of back and forth, there's a love story going on between males and females, and it was positive, it was amazing. And now you cannot, and I know this because I'm part of the record business, you cannot get a love song. It's gotta be, you cheated on me, you're a bastard,
Really?
Absolutely. Like I'm guilty of it. Look, Taylor Swift, she doesn't really make love songs for the most part, and I've done 8 of her videos, I think we did maybe 1 love song, I will say that, and then if you look at the way that guys listen to, the reason why I believe
Is this something that you talk about with artists?
I tell the record business this all the time. If you want to make money, start making love songs again. But I will also say, for instance, one of the reasons why, the pop punk thing that I made that Ick movie about, pop punk died, but not only did pop punk die, rock and roll died. It's not out there anymore. It does not exist.
Bands are gone.
They're gone. Well, they're gone, and there was a
whole top 40. There are 3 of
transition happened. Transition happened. If you watch in the 80s, the bands were all about sex and love and all that stuff. And at some point, grunge came in and they became political, you know, and you could not sing a love song because that was uncool. And then pop punk came along, and pop punk was like this transition from grunge into whatever, but those couldn't be love songs either because that was like weird. You know who ended up getting all this sort of love and sex? Rap, you know, like it all moved into hip hop, and all the masculinity and all the sort of toxic masculinity went into rap. And anybody in rock that even tried that got canceled. And so now, like literally, I mean, it went from metaphors about sex to literally people rapping about their pussies. You know, it's and that's the state of the music industry. So, what do you really need 4 minutes to explain that idea? Do you really need 4 minutes to make a video about pussies? You know, do you really need 4 minutes to say the same message about you cheated on me and you're a terrible partner? The stories are already told. That's why people are not interested in music videos, because there's nothing in the songs to make stories about. It'll change.
Well, that's really interesting because I want to go a little bit on about that because I'm always interested in how technique forms the content and the other way around. Like if you think of the model of how you make money, even if the little amounts that you make through Spotify, it also you know, there are how many songs that I think songs are 1 minute 35 or 1 minute 40 or something, and then you're not going to have the same sort of type of stories. You also want to be tell differently. You also want to have very simple things, I think. So that sort of plays into that too. If you have a TikTok thing, that's a few seconds. Right?
I truly believe the limitation is not the format. I think it's the story in the format that is limiting how much interest you can have in telling that. Because people, even in TikTok, can watch a TikTok longer than 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. They can go to 2 minutes, they can go 3 minutes, they can go 4 minutes. People still watch long formats. It's just what is being said, and nothing is being said.
Very cynical, but I'm thinking about it. Anybody else? Yeah.
So Joseph, I love you so much because the music videos you did with Britney literally shaped my imagination as a child and as a teenager. So you worked with Britney when she was a free woman, and then back in 2008 when she was under this conservatorship, you did with her Womanizer. And people always talk about how traumatizing that must have been for Britney, but they never talk about how traumatizing was it for creative people like you. How did you feel working under that delicate situation with Britney, knowing her before and after? And how are you able to handle the situation professionally in 2008?
The first thing is question is, how did you notice, or did you notice?
Well, yes, it was very clear. She had a lot of handlers, you know, and the hardest part of the business is working with record companies, I'll be honest with you, you know, and you can get some great people that you work with, but ultimately when you make a music video that's only 3-4 minutes long, you start getting notes, you know, and they're not from the artist. They're from like 15 other people, and they try to change your video before it even gets to the artist. And at that point, you're just lost. You're like, holy shit, this is never gonna be good. And the trick with Britney Spears is, I think, the thing I brought to the table is I listened to her, you know, where everybody else was just doing what they wanted with her. I took the time out and I would listen to her stories, because I am not an 18-year-old girl, obviously, and this song is meaningful to her. So, like, for me, the objective is to hear what she's thinking. Maybe her ideas are not completely cinematic, but I can at least hear what she's saying, get the ideas, and then use all my techniques to express. Same thing with Taylor Swift or any of the other artists. I tend to be a person that wants to speak from the artist's perspective rather than what the record company wants. You know, I want to express like from inside out.
And how can you cut away all the bullshit then? Because there is a lot of people trying to get in then.
You talk to them, and they have to trust you, and they have to feel confident that you have their best interest, you know? And I feel like I am that person for the most part, and I will fight for it to the point where record companies may not want to work with me in the future. But, you know, every time someone gives me a video, I have this huge responsibility. Maybe it's because I love my mother, you know? Maybe it's because I live in a world full of females and, like, I have daughters and all that, you know? But I want to do good for these women I work with, you know?
All right. Very good.
I have a question for Steffen, because for a large portion of my youth, I was convinced that there were no good Dutch movies out. And watching New Kids was the first time I was exposed to actual stuff that excited me. So I really want to know, what was the first movie that you watched that really inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Wow. I mean, the first movie I watched was The Care Bears. But I don't think I took...
There's not a lot of that in your movies, I guess.
No, it isn't. And the first real action film I saw was He-Man, Masters of the Universe, with Dolph Lundgren. I don't know, I had a very weird... I started watching good films when I went to film school. So there was just no film culture in my family. We just watched what was on television. So it was Revenge of the Nerds, Bud Spencer.
Nothing wrong with Bud Spencer, just want to say.
Oh, it's great. It's the dialogue. I love the dialogue most. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I took more from life and the New Kids films. There's this one moment I can remember when I was like I was a little kid, and this was near Het Pleintje, so the square where all these guys would hang out, and those were, I mean, the New Kids didn't really exist, but there were lots of youth guys hanging out, and this was near that square, and I can remember I was like, I don't know, this big, and I was walking, and I saw these guys standing in front of the car, and every time there was this something white that came out of their mouth, fell on the floor, and I thought like, wow, they have so much gum. They are chewing. I just didn't know what it was. So I think that was a start, a kickoff of being inspired by these this kind of characters. It was just, I don't know, it was just interesting. I just took all that stuff from that small town that I just wanted to, because that's the town I wanted to leave. Of course, I mean, I grew up in a small town, and it was just not the place for me. I wanted to go to cities, to other places. Yeah. But looking back, yeah, it was like a huge inspiration, and I could shoot on the locations where I grew up, with also family members in the scenes. Yeah.
But I want to, because you were in film school, you were not a director, were you? You were
a cinematographer.
Cinematographer. Now, usually, people who go into cinematography, I mean, the first thing everybody wants to be is a director. By the time you want to be an editor or you want to be a cinematographer, you have done certain things to think, hey, wait a minute, this is something I'm good at, or this is something that I like. So you must have done stuff before. I mean, you can't otherwise...
Yeah, of course, but I didn't know... that I could be a director. It was not something that was around me. So I was from this small town in the south of Holland. There were no filmmakers.
Yeah, I know it.
So for me, I just started skating, and with Tim Haars, my little brother, who was also in New Kids and in lots of my films. And we started skating together, and he was like pretty good, and I was little. So he became Dutch champion street skating, and I was third, the first Dutch championships in Holland, the official ones, and he made some money with that, and he bought an high-8 camera, and I just started filming him. So
it's interesting that you then went to cinematography, especially since you became a director.
Yeah, but I had this camera, so I didn't know I don't know how that worked.
Spike Jonze had a camera, and he became a director. I mean, before he became a cinematographer, I think.
Before he, no, but I was of course a cinematographer first. I thought this was movie making.
I mean, I just think it's funny that you, because normally what most people want to be a director, because if they know anything about movies.
I didn't.
Besides that, you think that actors, as you watch movies, you think actors just make it up and it just happens to be on camera, right? And then you think, oh, maybe somebody's actually making them, and that's what you want to be. To be a cinematographer, you have to be one step further, I would say.
I don't know. I think it was just I just loved the image and creating that image, and I just started filming my little brother skating, but then I got a little bit bored, and we started to think about funny stuff, and it became sort of sketches. It's sort of all because he didn't want to be an actor.
Yeah, but
and
that's just
didn't want to be a
just going-
filmmaker.
It's
It
one
was-
thing that's applying to the Film Academy, to getting accepted.
Yeah, after that, because then I made these skate videos, and I made a sort of a living out of that, selling those VHSs from my backpack and going in the train to all the skate shops and selling those videos to them, and that's how I sort of, and then I thought I want to go to the Film Academy because I heard about that through someone from my school. I didn't know about it, that it existed even, and then the logical thing was cinematography, but I was already,
making stuff.
Yeah, so I was already creating. So while on film school, I was also making sketches for the sketch show, the Pulp Show.
Was that on film school? Oh.
Yeah, it was while I was in film school, and I did the Trip, this with this MTV show. It was weird. It was just all these strange things. And then after film school, I think for a couple of years, I was a cinematographer and a director. So I shot my own commercials and music videos and that kind of stuff. But it just got too much because you.
So when was the first thing? I'm just personally interested because because I saw, I think it was on social media. I saw I think it's one of the first things that you did with the New Kids thing was also amateuristic in terms of cinematography and all that stuff. It was very, very crude. When was that then? Because
I think the amateuristic part was really on purpose. Because it needed to look like sometimes ugly or dry or flat or not to be aware of the camera too much. But yeah, no, I mean, I remember the first moment I met Flip. I think a week later we made like a sketch. It's called Stunt of the Maand. It's I shoot Flip. That's it. He sort of volunteers to be shot with a gun, and we sort of try to figure it out how it works with ketchup and that kind of stuff. And that was the start of the Pulp Show, and the Pulp Show was the start of New Kids on the Block, and New Kids on the Block became New Kids.
Because the interesting thing, because as I said, I come from the same area, and I remember the first thing I saw. I can't remember where I saw it. It was the first thing. It was I saw it on the internet, and I thought the first thing I thought was that I thought it was hilarious, but I thought I could get it because it was exactly like what I knew. Like I knew those guys, you know, they're with the matches and all the, you know, all those guys. And I thought you had to come from that area to appreciate that. And but it became hugely popular already before the movie in all over, especially with young people. And I saw that, and that amazed me. I thought, and that's something that's interesting, which we come back to where he said about the universal and the specific. Yeah, sometimes things travel, even if they seem to be extremely local or something.
Yeah, but I think because it's so from that place, in a way that it's so unique that people recognize it, and sometimes you recognize the comedy for what it is, but it can also be the absurdic vibes of these things. I mean, it's I don't know. People recognize when something is just authentic in a way. So I think that is a very good way for things to travel, and then they would land differently in different countries, but you would feel that this is from this something.
Because I remember we had a discussion about Dutch cinema. Sorry, because we're both in it. And we talked about other directors, and we won't name names. But you said that, and I think you're right, is that there are very few Dutch directors who actually really make the movies that they like themselves. And I think that's one of the things that I like about your stuff, is that you can really feel that it comes from somebody, and that it's not somebody who makes something because somebody thinks that will work. It's something that makes you laugh.
Yeah, I mean that's the because it's all so so small, and this film industry in Holland is small. I always have this really arrogant way of thinking, like I just want to make something that I like, and that's it. Yeah. And of course you listen, but it's mostly so extreme. Also with these New Kids films. I always thought nobody would like it. I thought that this is just for me and my friends. But weirdly enough, this became a sort of a blockbuster hit in Holland, which didn't exist, or it doesn't exist in a way. I mean, the blockbuster in Holland, it's yeah, it's just too small for that. But weirdly enough, it
It's
became
also,
really
it's also the last,
mainstream.
I think it's the last, and it was already special then, but it's the last masculine blockbuster who has a certain masculinity, because it's very male humor. And I know you won't say that it's directed to men, but it definitely has a masculinity to it. And a lot of Dutch movies, especially the rom-coms, they're tailored for a female audience, I feel. And it's there are very little showing of masculinity in Dutch movies.
Yeah, but
All movies right now.
Huh?
That's all movies right now.
Yeah.
Yes, because my experience is when I go to the studio meetings and I go around Hollywood, every executive is female.
The same in Holland, by the way. Yeah.
Every one of them, to the dot. And if it's male, it's a gay male, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know where all the men in the business went, but...
Yeah, but they've been ruling it for a long time, so I mean, it's not like, yeah.
Victory.
No, I mean, if you look at Holland, I mean, the director of the Film Fund is a female. The director of Film Museum is a female. The director of the film school is a female. You know, I can go on. They're all. So it is. It's not like it's only female directors, because that's not true. I think there's still a majority. But
I'll give you an example of a pitch story. Like, I was thinking in my head, remember that movie Project X? And the party movie? I was like, you know what? It's been a while since this generation has had a Project X movie with a bunch of boys and girls and all that. And so I'm like talking to an executive. Like, that's great, you know? We should make it about a sorority, you know? And so everything gets skewed towards that way. Maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. I don't know what it is, but ultimately, it's
probably a phase. I think it sort of corrects what I mean. It was. I mean, it was. But
like
it's just I have no
look. I
beef with it.
I obviously
it's
make
just
a
how
lot
it
of.
is.
I make obviously a lot of female videos and
Yeah.
things like that, and very softer things. But it is true. Anytime you pitch something, it gets flipped into take the masculinity out of it.
Yeah.
And you know what? The reality is, men don't watch movies anymore. If you look at the statistics, men play video games.
Yeah.
They play way more video games than they ever watch movies now.
Yeah.
Movies are now a female art, you know, and the
Literature is already for a while.
and the boys play video games. They don't watch movies.
I thought it was a very interesting conversation. I think I learned something. Hope you liked it. Can I have a big hand for these two guys? Woo!